Heyo, welcome everyone to Today in the Scene by Indie Arcade Wave. I'm Joe, your host, and here on In the Scene, we dive into what's happening in the arcade space, from new arcade developers, arcade owners and operators, and just news in the space in general. Now, I've been part of the team that made Galactic Battleground about 6 years ago. We've been taking it to conventions all over the country, and we just finished Food Fight Frenzy as well. That will be coming out later on this year, so if you're looking to bring that into the arcade, feel free to reach out. We've got an awesome guest this week. He's been on the show before. He's got a cool arcade just outside of Milwaukee. It's called Vintage Vault Arcade, and a lot has changed in the last year. He's had some cool guests, and we're just going to kind of touch on what it was like opening the arcade and what the first year has been like. So here's James. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good, good. Glad to have you back on here. Excited to chat. We got to briefly talk at Midwest Gaming Classic.
Yep.
You were passing out flyers. We were, it was after party. Everybody was busy, but let's just jump into who's James, what do you do, and like kind of how did you get into the arcade space?
So I collected a long time ago, and it started with one game. It was Miss Pac-Man, which is a cabaret, and I ended up getting that from a friend named Mike Poland, and he ended up like kind of showing me the ropes on some of the game, like repairs and stuff, because it didn't just start with the one; it started with one, two, three, four, and so on and so forth. So it turned into one of those things that are at what I was doing, and I got confident enough to kind of like take it into a business aspect. And I kind of fell into the Mukwonago area because my now wife, I was dating Skylar at the time. She was living in East Troy, so I was going back and forth from Madison to East Troy. And one day I just kind of settled in Mukwonago just because I was like, this place has really not a lot of entertainment on the aspects of like other than like bars or like other things to do during the day. There's nothing like for like arcade related stuff. So I settled in McGonagall, and it's been a really good experience. I've had a lot of good customers, not too many bad ones. Everybody kind of respects the stuff, and that's allowed me to kind of stay on repairs and kind of keep up with things. But at the same time, there's been a lot of things that have broke, and we just got into pinball within the last like 6 7 months, and that's been a whole nother learning curve, another facet of the business. But now that we did that, it's brought in a whole nother different area of aspect for like our different kind of customers and the returning customers that have never seen the pinballs. They really enjoy it. So we're doing more of that. We're getting more pinballs and more arcade games. But it's just been a good first year overall. And I fell into it kind of just by sheer luck in a weird way. I just really liked it and got confident enough to want to take the jump of owning a business. And once I did that, it ended up being fairly smooth, but I had to do everything, a lot of stuff on my own, but also having help through the community. That really helped me to be where I am today.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds first year of business in the arcade. So you decided to pivot into pinball a little bit more. You're learning there. What made you want to jump into the pinball space?
So that's a great question. It was actually a man by the name of Sean Camps. He lived in East Troy, and he was moving to, I believe, Montana. Don't quote me, but I think it was Montana. And he's like, "Hey, I noticed you don't have any pinball. I've been to your arcade. It's awesome, but you're kind of missing the pinball. So what's going on there?" And I just told him, it's kind of that weird area for us. We haven't learned it yet. It's still a lot of money. So he was like, "I've got a Tales from the Crypt pinball from Data East. Would you want it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So when he came by, he dropped it off, and I was like, "So how much do you want for it?" He's like, "I'm just gonna give it to you." And I looked at him, and I was like, "No, I can't just accept this." And he just ended up giving me the pinball. So it had a few things broken with it. He was like, "If you can get it up and running, I know you'll love it. You're not gonna sell it. You're gonna want to keep it. This is gonna be your first pinball, and I feel honored to give it to you." So he was really cool about it, and he just didn't want to take it on the trip. So that led to me trying to figure it out. I actually called a few of my buddies. One of my buddies, Joe England, he's a good guy. He tried to help me and he fixed a few things. And then we got to a point where I ended up talking to my buddy Chris Techmeyer. And we got to a couple points to the when we just ended up calling, or I should say, I called a number that I found in the pinball. It said, "If you ever need any, or you having any problems with this game, call this number." So I called the number and it was out of service. So then I looked up the company name, and that's what led me to Paul Reno, who he's been in the business for a very long time. He came by and helped me fix one issue, and he was like, "I can completely refurbish this pinball for you. and it'll get it really playing well. And then when he did that for me, I had him do pretty much every single one of my pinballs. And then once I had him pretty much in line, all redone, reconditioned, stuff like that, I've been kind of trying to stay up on the repairs myself because I've been learning and having Paul there to kind of guide me, like saying, "Hey, I have an issue with this." Send him a text message. He kind of lets me know if I'm doing the right thing or not. I've been getting more confident in it, and it's been really good to have those kind of friendships that kind of came out of someone's kindness. So that really gave me the push forward to just the kind of money that you have to do to in order to like invest in pinball. I just ended up buying pinballs. I was like, now I'm not so scared because I have somebody in my corner that I can rely on and hire if I need to. And even through that, I knew deep down I kind of wanted to learn myself. This is one facet of the business I've always been kind of like scared of. It was one thing that and it's still to this day, things break all the time. But now that I'm doing it, I'm actually surprised I didn't do it sooner. But again, going to the cost, be successful has been able to push forward with purchases like that. I probably would have never been able to do this without actually making money with the arcade. Just as you do know, they're so expensive.
Yeah, I mean, pinballs are not cheap. It's not an easy thing to get into. There's a lot more going on than a cabinet, and parts break constantly. You know, like with an arcade cabinet, if you bulletproof it, like you're usually pretty good for a while.
Yep,
Pinballs, like it could be you fix it one day, 2 hours later it's down, and
yep.
you have to figure out what's going on with it.
It's a
So
self-destructive machine. It's one of those things that just like it's a heavy steel ball just flying around. Before you know,
just
it's gonna break something.
just bumping into a bunch of electrical parts, like something's gonna go wrong.
Yep.
So you've been open for just over a year now. What have you learned in that year, and what were like your three biggest learning lessons that you had in that first year?
Uh, the first year was the biggest one was just learn to kind of go with the flow. It's something I've always been kind of like keen to watch is how like your season go up and down and when does that reflect with the weather, what's going on outside. The first year was a little panicky because it was very good right off the bat, which usually is if you do your marketing strategies really well. But they call it a honeymoon season for a fact. There's reasons for that. Long story short, it's really good, and then all of a sudden it kind of tapers down, and then it just goes really stagnant for a while, and you're like, uh oh, did we do something wrong? No, it's just the season change. It turned into summer, and we were still getting our name out there. So now from last summer to this summer, it's been so much better. Like we've had a lot more business this summer, and I think it's because of all the flyering I handed out. As you do know, as you saw me doing at MGC, like I was there pretty much on business, just talking to everybody, buying games and flyering and stuff. So, and doing that at like just today, I handed out about 500 flyers at the local Summerfest thing going on, which is down in our field park for this whole weekend. Just getting the name out there and trying to like learn from the first season to the second season what worked, what didn't. Trying to talk to people head on, not just putting flyers on cars, doing both. And always just getting in their face, like reminding them that we do exist because our building is a little hidden. We're in the back of a building, it's in the lower level. So if you just drive by, you wouldn't even see it. It's one of those things that you kind of got to know about it, which is it's been a double-edged sword, but people love that it's like its own little hidden gem once you find it. So I guess that would be a big thing, just kind of learning the curvature of like when your highs are going to be and your lows are going to be, and then tracking it. Like how well was this January from last January, and not taking it too seriously because there's certain things that have happened, whether it be like or even the political aspect that we're about to go through, and then the later of the year. Even just the economy has been a little bit worse this year than last year, but we're still doing good. So it's like it's hard to kind of judge all that based on just a couple of numbers. It's almost like you have to do that year after year to kind of see the trend. And it's just one of those things that I'm happy to say we've been successful, but I think it's because we put so much work into it. I mean, years and years and years of work just to be open for the last year and a half, and we're just finally starting to get those good numbers even in summer.
Yeah, I mean it's great to hear that it's getting better. You're constantly growing, you're constantly learning. Like you are studying, you're like intentionally
Hmm.
getting better at it and spending your free time focusing on it. And the flyers are big. I mean, anybody starting a business, like you need to get out there and get in people's faces and let them know you exist,
Exactly.
or nothing's gonna happen. You know, you
Yep.
have to let people know you're here. So something cool happened, obviously. I'm looking at your Instagram right now. I don't know about you. Growing up, I was a big skateboarder, and Tony Hawk is like a total dream to meet the guy. So, what was that like having Tony Hawk show up at your arcade?
So
And how did it happen?
So he did a shout out for my company in 2020, and this was when I had a friend there who ended up he was skateboarding with him, and he was like, "You're never gonna believe this," and he sent me this video. It was just like basically saying you can still find that on the internet. Basically saying like how he really likes the project, he hopes to see it like in fruition, and if one day he could come visit it, he would come visit. And fast forward to when we were open just in April this year, he was in Greenfield and in the Milwaukee area for like the turf, save the turf skate park thing that they had going on, and which is a great thing. If you've never seen that, go check it out. And he wanted to be one of the last people to skate onto the actual, how should I say this, like the original skate park because it was buried and then they dug it out and it was damaged, but it was still skatable. So he skated that, did some work with them, and then from my knowledge, he went and did a secret like vert ramp thing that's kind of in the area, but he was like, I can't really tell you about it because it's a secret. So I was like, okay, I was out of the party on that one. Long story short, he was on Instagram. I saw he made a post, and I was like, hey, Tony, I don't know if you remember, you gave my company a shout out, and I sent him the video. I was like, it would be really cool if the whole thing came full circle. Like, you came and checked it out. I didn't think you would ever come to Wisconsin, and here you are. Like, why not? Let's hang out. And I could see that it said seen, so I was like, he saw it, didn't respond to it, and that was I think on Saturday. And then that following day, which was I believe April 21st, it was Sunday, he texted Instagram and said, "Sure, we'll come check it out." And I was like, "No way, are you coming tonight?" Like I was about to close, so sometimes we close early on Sunday nights. And he was like, "No, we're on the way." And I was like, "No way." So I went up to my wife Skylar. I was like, "So Tony Hawk's on the way here?" And she was kind of like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know." And it was humbling because it kind of showed the people in my area like, oh yeah, he's the guy with the arcade. You know, it's a cool little spot, but it's just like some arcade in the basement. That's like how some people were approached to it. And then once Tony Hawk came through, it was like, oh, I heard you're the guy that had Tony Hawk in Mukwonago. And the reason why he was in Mukwonago was to come to your arcade. So it was kind of cool to see people kind of turn an eye to it and go, hey, but I thought it was going to bring me a lot of business. It did not, but it did bring some sort of notoriety. Like people were like, oh yeah, you're the guy. So it was very awesome. He was very good at all the games. He's not what you would call a poser. He loved Attack from Mars. He said it was one of the best playing games he's like pin Attack from Mars that he's ever played, and that's thanks to Paul Reno. He fully reconditioned that one for me. Um, and I've been just kind of keeping it chugging along. But yeah, he signed my Missile Command cabinet. He played like Battlezone, some other pinballs. He loved the pinballs, and he was really good at all the games. He was with a crowd of 10 people. They were all very nice people, and they ended up kind of leaving. I think it was like 10:30, 10:45, and it was about 2.5 hours they were there, roughly. And it was just a trip because the best way I can say it was my childhood hero that I played his video games as a child. I was giving him his childhood memories back by him playing my video games as an adult. So it was weird. It was definitely like the world's not so big. The world's kind of small, and if you just know what you're doing and you're a nice person and you send it out in the world, that you can essentially manifest it. That's kind of what happened. I just kind of made it happen through just being always around, trying to like all of his posts and just showing him love and respect back. So it was great for him to stop by. That was awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's great to hear that he likes Attack from Mars because that's like one of my favorite pins too.
Same.
And yeah, I played like I have a couple Tony Hawk games here in my N64 collection that I love playing. So if you haven't beaten the first one, I don't know what you're doing. You should have played it a long time ago. But
I
Um,
actually, funny you said that. I actually had played that game, the first one, and beat the entire game within probably like earlier this year, and I had not played it for many, 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 many years. So it was
yeah,
like kind of weird how that happened. Like I was like, hey, yo, Sky, let's play this game, and we played it back and forth. And then it was just like I had no idea that later that year I was going to be hanging out with Tony Hawk.
right. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not a very long game. Like if you know what you're doing, you can get through it pretty quick.
yeah, it was like the back of my hand. I knew everything, where all the tapes were and everything. I was like, wow.
Yeah, that first one, I still remember where like all the hidden tapes are and everything. So,
Yep.
let's talk about advice for people that want to open an arcade. Right, you're a year in, you've kind of got it figured out. You're feeling more comfortable with it, right? Like give like one or two pieces of advice to future arcade owners that have games right now and are like just about to open up. Like, what would you say to do to make that first year easier?
Really study the location, the area, try to figure out if it works for you. In my case, it just was like I live near here and it just made sense. I was like, if I don't do it, it's never happening. That was like my mentality. So I took the jump. It's a very small area. You know, there's not even room for another arcade out here. So it's like one of those things that it works. It's a double-edged sword. So that was okay. But really, really, really study the craft, maintain your games, spend the extra money to make it look good. You know, sometimes when you're just putting them up against the wall and turning them on, that's what people think an arcade is. It's really kind of a craft when you want to make it a welcoming thing because you're not only just selling the arcade, you're selling yourself. So I'm the owner. I'm here every single day. I'm here with my wife, who is my main supporter, and she's the one that I really, really like run everything by, and she's just nothing but supportive. So she's great to me, and she's great to the customers, and everybody loves her. You're gonna see familiar faces every time you come here, and we're gonna talk to you and interact with you, rather than like most arcades and stuff like that. So we try to make it so you feel really welcomed where we're at because we want you to come back. You know, we don't mind if you bring snacks inside. Most places are like no outside stuff. We want you to feel as comfortable as possible here, so you want to come back because that money goes right back into it. If you're not willing to suffer for the first, I would say 3 to 5 years. I mean, somebody even said it to me today. It's the ramen years. You got to get through it. You know, you got to like just constantly reinvest and constantly spend a lot of your money, and it gets to a point of where at the end there is a light, and as long as you're doing it in a way that you're not all in one area, you're kind of separating your time management and your money. I think it'll be one of those things that it could work for you, but just know that it's a very cutthroat environment, unfortunately. It's very dependent on you not having competition and which competition happens. So it's like you can get lucky, you can get in a good area, but at the same time, nothing lasts forever. So unless you're perfecting your craft every year and getting a little bit better every day, you will slowly but surely just fade away. So that's another thing that, you know, you got to kind of be on the forefront of just reinvestment.
You got to be committed. You got to be
Yep.
ready. You got to be in it, in it for the long haul. And
Yep.
that's the big thing. That's any business, like you got to be ready to stick it out because there are going to be tough times. There are going to be easy times. You can't relax. You got to always be improving because someone is
Yep.
coming up behind you trying to take what you got. So,
Yep, exactly. And you can't do all the personal purchases, the nice cars, the nice house. That's all got to wait. It's all got to like you got to kind of really eat, sleep, breathe arcades to really want to do it because it just takes all your money and time. So
right.
unless you're like willing to do that and sacrifice a lot of your personal life, it doesn't make sense to most people. I mean, even here, they're like, "You want a bigger one?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want to go bigger." And they're like, "But that means less money because there's going to be more games and more repairs and more. Your building's going to be more money." And I look them straight in the eye and I'm like, "Yeah, money doesn't. It's not. It's not the money. It's about the vision. Don't chase the money. Chase the vision." And that's kind of how I feel
Passion.
about that.
Yeah, just stay on top of the passion. I mean, if you're doing what
Yep.
you love, it doesn't really matter as long as you're getting by, right? Like as long as you're comfortable, you're good.
Yep. And that'll
Um,
bring hopefully a better tomorrow. You know, like suffer today for a little better tomorrow. And I wouldn't even say it was suffering. We had a really good first year, and I've been happy the whole way. There's been times where I kind of panic, but now it's gotten to the point of where I'm like not worried about it. I just whenever I feel like there's not as many people in here, I go out and flyer and I get off my butt and just kind of like, I'm like, there's a fire. And if you don't stand up and put it out by putting the work in, your success will reflect that. You know, that's one thing that I've been a major component of is really putting in the work if you want that success.
Right. Yeah, I mean, clearly you figured it out. You're doing well with what you're doing. Shout out your social medias where people can follow you, and I think that's really all I had for you. I just wanted to check up, see how the arcade's doing, and see what kind of advice you had for people.
Yeah, well, no, and I really appreciate that. I always love hearing from you. It was great to meet you at MGC. I actually got the Party Zone Pinball and soon to be Labyrinth. That was something that I caught my eye and I wanted to get that. But yeah, my socials are going to be like Facebook um, / Vintage Vault Arcade. And then you've got Vintage Vault Arcade on Instagram. There's TikTok. And then there's also a Snapchat, which is mainly like just taking pictures of the people that are playing and some like in-depth repair stuff and things like that. So if you want to follow, go ahead and follow. We usually have it on a public, so you don't even have to ask to add on. You just like kind of look for it. But yeah, we're going to be touching base on other things. We don't have a website. We're actually going to look into that because I know not everybody has social media, so that's something that we still have to do. It's kind of embarrassing. In a year and a half, I haven't done it. So like I said, there's always room to improve.
Yeah, I mean, I agree on the website thing. It's definitely a good thing to have. I mean, I've been doing this for over 4 years now. I just launched my website like 2 weeks ago, so
Yeah, you see, it's
we're there now, right?
yep.
Eventually get to it.
Yeah, that's
Well,
the later things that you think about when you're like, okay, I've got it kind of where I want it. What do I do now? Now you start thinking about those things.
exactly. Like, how do I create one page where everybody can find the indie games?
Yep.
We'll be talking again soon, I'm sure. We'll be talking about getting some indie games in there. And yeah, I really appreciate your time, James. Like, thanks for coming on. And for anybody that's still watching, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The wave will continue to grow. We can all ride it together. We've got both versions of Galactic Battleground available for sale right now, the Konami and the tabletop. We've got Food Fight Frenzy coming very soon, 4-player Food Fight, Atari license. And then we have the t-shirts for Galactic Battleground and Indie Arcade Wave available on the Galactic Battleground website. And don't forget to check out the Indie Arcade Wave website. All the games are on there, so if you're looking to bring one into your arcade, that's where to go. And until next time, peace.